So, the great debate, the magazine release debate. Now, this one I think is very overblown, but I do have a thought on the matter, and if you're unaware what I'm even talking about, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about now. One of the considerations you need to make when buying a gun is the ergonomics, how it feels in your hand, and the battery of arms, where functioning things are, like the trigger and the slide release and the magazine release, and where all the stuff that you might need to use is going to be. And one of those things you might need to use is the magazine release. Well, I certainly hope that you should have to use the magazine release if you ever, I don't know, want to shoot the gun one time. Well, this is where the big difference comes in, and it's quite a contention point for some people, but myself, I think it's way overblown, but again, I do have a preference. The two main types of magazine releases you're going to see, and there's more, these are just the big two when you're talking about modern self-defense tactical pistols. There's some other ones, like ones where you push on the bottom of the magazine. There's a little clip on the bottom, like some of the Rugers do this, some of the Ruger Mark 1s, 2, 3s, I'm not very familiar with them, but you press on the bottom and the magazine will drop out. I think that's one of the old European styles, but we're talking just about the two main ones. We're talking about modern tactical firearms. The two main ones are going to be your button style, sometimes known as conventional or American style, and the paddle style, sometimes known as the Euro style. Now, these two firearms here are ones that are examples of each, and I have a few more that are all different examples of them. One happens to be the same P99, but just in different caliber for the paddle side, and the other one on the button side happens to be this Ruger SR22. But let's talk about them and show you what they are and show you what the differences are. First of all, we're going to safety check, even though obviously you're going to do this before the camera's turned on anyway, but we'll just do it to make everybody happy. Nothing in the chamber there. Nothing in the magazine here on the Glock 26. And on the P99, nothing in the magazine, and nothing in the chamber. So, let's talk about the magazine releases. Let's talk about the one that most people are familiar with, the button style, because it's on the Glocks, and Glocks are the most popular I don't know what we're going to call these. Modern defensive handguns, that's what we'll call them. They're the most common defensive handguns, so most people are familiar with this. This is the button style release. On the side of the magazine well here, you're going to have a button, and when you press the button, the magazine will drop out. Now, there are different kinds of button magazine releases. Some of them allow you to change the button from one side to the other. I believe the Gen 4 Glocks do that. And some of them, like the SR22, which we'll bring in again and safety check real quick, some of them have ambidextrous buttons, where there's a button on one side and already a button on the other side. So there's a few different options when it comes to the button magazine release, but that's what you get with the button. Most people are familiar with this. You empty the magazine, and you just press the button, and the magazine drops out. Some people like that. Some people don't like that. And why don't they like it? Because of option number 2. Let's move these off to the side. And take a look at the second popular magazine release style, the Euro or the paddle magazine release. Let's push this off the side here so we're not distracted. Now, how does this work? You'll notice that there's no button on the side here, so how does it work? Well, under the trigger guard here, or actually sort of part of the trigger guard here, you have these paddles, one on each side. It's really just one paddle, but it's split in two, so half of it comes on one side of the trigger guard, half on the other side. And to drop the magazine, you either hit it with your thumb here, or on the other side you come around and hit it with your finger. Just push the paddle down like that. You see how the paddle goes down? That's how the magazine drops out. Now, I greatly prefer this paddle style. A lot of people don't. Why? Because they say, well, when you're shooting it's a little bit awkward. They're used to the button magazine release, and they say, well, when you're shooting it's a little bit awkward to drop the mag because you have to switch your grip up to hit the paddle like that. But see, that I don't understand, because the far, far, far easier way to do it, which is similar to, say, if you're shooting one of those evil, big, bad, scary ARs, is you just move your finger down from the trigger to this side of the paddle here. I would much prefer hitting the magazine release with my index finger, just like on an AR, albeit on the AR you move your finger up to the magazine release, than trying to get the little button on the side there, because let's not forget when they say this, but I can't reach the magazine button, I have to switch my grip to drop the magazine. Well, let's not forget that unless you have a Gen 4 Glock, that same is true unless you have really long thumbs. If you're in a shooting grip like this, and you want to drop the mag, that's not happening. You're going to have to change your grip anyway. So I think that's a bit of a kind of ridiculous argument when they say, well, you know, you have to change your grip on those paddle releases, so I don't really like them. Well, you kind of have to do that with a lot of magazine releases anyway, unless they've been extended specifically. Now, that might not be true for all the modern defensive guns, but I know it is for the Glocks, and a lot of them you have to really change your grip anyway. But this is where it being overblown comes into play. I always hear, well, you have to change your grip and then you're going to be out of your shooting stance. This is where I think it gets ridiculous. If you're in an actual defensive shooting where there's only probably going to be a couple shots fired, but you never know, you may have to take a reload. I'm talking about real life shooting here, not a video game or anything like that. When you're going to change your magazine out, you're probably going to be in, I don't know, cover. You probably shouldn't drop your magazine out standing like a big target out in the open. And you're probably not going to be thinking clearly. Things are already going to be, going crazy in your mind anyway. So maintaining the absolute perfect shooting position throughout your reload probably isn't going to be happening. You're probably going to do one of these things. Oh, my magazine's empty. Take the gun to the side, drop the magazine, put a new one in. Therefore, you've already broken your shooting stance, so if you have to hit a button over here versus a button over on the other side versus one of these, I don't think it's really going to matter. As long as you are comfortable with it, I wouldn't worry about if you can actually hit the button without breaking your shooting stance. Because, again, you already have to if you have the Glocks. If you have one of the ones with the extended magazine releases, you can do it without breaking your shooting stance. But again, I just feel that if you're going to be reloading in any sort of real defensive situation, you're probably not going to be worried about if you have a perfect hold all the way through your reload. It's probably going to be something like this. If I had to guess what your body would actually be doing with that much adrenaline flowing and, thinking that you might die. That's what I think might be more appropriate. Now, I think that might be a more appropriate situation than expecting this to happen. So, call me crazy, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. It's whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you practice with. I don't mind either, but I prefer the paddle mag release because, again, I can just do it with my finger there. It's much easier. Even if I'm just handling the gun, not even in a defensive situation, just handling the gun, loading it and unloading it, like, I don't know, to make a YouTube video or something like that, I just think it's much easier with the paddle magazine release. Plus, one advantage of the paddle magazine release is if you're going to be crazy and shoot two guns at once, like I did in my last video with these two guys right here, it's automatically ambidextrous. You don't have to worry about if it's an option to switch over the button from one side to the other. It's automatically ambidextrous. So, ta-da! Alright, well, that's my thought. I hope I explained the two different types to you well enough. The two different types of popular magazine releases in these defensive handguns. If you have any questions on them, or you need a suggestion, or any of that stuff, please leave a comment. But in the comments, I would like to hear, what are your thoughts on that? You just can't get used to the Euro paddle style? You love it? You hate it? Well, I'd like to hear it. And why? Why that? Just because you're used to one, you're not used to the other? Well, I'd like to hear why. So in the comments, I want to hear about that. What do you think about the styles of magazine release? Doesn't matter to you. As long as it goes bang, I'd love to hear it. So thanks for watching. Take it easy, guys.